So we all know what happened in Nevada. The Democratic machine screwed over the Sanders people. Not that big of a screwing. By the way, it was wrong, and we're all upset about it. What I'm more upset about is not that the specific, what was that chairperson's lady's name in Nevada?
Roberta Lang.
Roberta Lang, what she did by gaveling things and taking voice votes and saying they went the other way and, all the corruption that happened at the caucus. They only netted 2 extra delegates, pledged delegates. That's what they got out of all that ill will. So what the story here and what makes me more upset is not what happened literally at that convention. That was bad. But the way everybody else reacted to it, not only the mainstream press, but the DNC, right? So here's Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She goes on with Wolf Blitzer, and listen to what, again, she pushes the false narrative. She's obviously in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Wow, she really goes over the top. Let's watch.
I'll just reiterate that the Democratic National Committee remains neutral in this primary.
You have to start off with a fucking lie. You just don't say it. You just say, hey, listen, we try. Say we try to stay neutral. Don't say we have to remain. Say we try to remain. But if obviously we're not. Starts it off with a blatant lie. That's a lie. She's not neutral. And she's not neutral, right?
The fact that she says it is like one of those the lady doth protest too much moments.
Yeah. And
you shouldn't have to say that. We know that. You're the Democratic chair. We know that you're supposed to be like that. The fact that you're saying it tells us that you're not.
So let's watch how she goes on to be neutral.
Based on our rules. But when I heard what happened at the Nevada State Democratic Convention this weekend, I was deeply disturbed. Regardless of...
When I heard, not when the videotapes I saw, the audio tapes I heard, or when I heard. Okay.
Did you hear from Roberta Lang?
Did you?
Did you hear her? Did you get a hissy fit from her the moment she walked off that stage?
And apparently she...
Any campaign or candidate's frustration over process. There should never be a but when it comes to condemning violence and intimidation. Violence and intimidation are never acceptable under any circumstances, and what happened at that convention was unacceptable.
Okay, I'm just going to say it again. Not one videotape, not one snapshot, not one Polaroid, nothing, not one picture, not a selfie, nothing shows violence happening at that Nevada caucus. Not only that, no arrests, none, no arrests. And there were cops all over the place. No arrests. Not one videotape of any violence. And she just keeps saying this. And guess what happens when you say this? You make the story about that instead of what the story should be about, which was the corruption that everybody saw that actually did take place on videotape. We have the videotape. Look at our other videos. We have the videotape of that, what's her name?
Roberta Lang.
Roberta Lang.
And by the way, they were the ones who intimidated people.
Yes, of course they were.
It was the establishment. They are the ones who trotted out the apparatchiks of the Nevada army that showed up. They're the ones who
brought the cops in there.
They're the ones who blatantly ignored the will of
the people.
And tried to intimidate them. They're the ones whose vice chair looked straight into the eye of one of the Bernie supporters and said, "This is not about democracy."
The vice chair of that Nevada caucus looked into the eye of a Bernie supporter. We just showed it on another video and said, "This is not about democracy." Said that.
So those are acts of intimidation.
Yes.
Not Bernie supporters booing.
Booing when you get screwed over in an unethical and unfair way. That's what you're supposed to do. That's okay to do that. That's not violence. That's not outrageous. That's not unacceptable. That's what you're supposed to do. Here we go.
Was not at the convention, and the Democratic National Committee didn't have anything to do with what the way the meeting was run. But the bottom line is that we've had the same rules in place, that elected Barack Obama, and these rules were adopted for state parties all across the country in 2014. They were followed, and even if the Sanders supporters are frustrated, there is never, under any circumstance, a place for violence and intimidation to be resorted to in response.
Again, didn't happen, just keeps repeating it, absolutely no evidence. And they let her. Wolf Blitzer's going to let her say this. He's not going to say, what evidence do you have?
Congresswoman, the Nevada State Democratic Party said, and I'm quoting now, that Sanders campaign staff and supporters incited violence and chaos. Those are pretty strong words. Does the DNC believe the Sanders campaign, that staffers actually incited violence?
So he didn't say, does the DNC have any evidence? Does the Nevada Democratic Party have any evidence that this happened? There's no evidence of this. These are just wild accusations. And you just lied to start this off by saying you're neutral. So, I mean, again, Wolf says, do you believe? He doesn't say, do you have evidence? This is what you're supposed to do. So here's what she says.
Well, like I said, I was not there, but I do know because there was video and acknowledgement.
There is no video of any violence at all.
No, but she said acknowledgement, Jimmy. There's acknowledgement that there was violence. What does that mean?
I don't know what. There's no video. That's a lie. And Wolf doesn't push back. He doesn't say what video, where. I didn't see any video.
And who was the person who acknowledged that there was violence?
And who acknowledged it?
What she does have is a blurry picture of Bigfoot, kind of shadow boxing in the woods.
Chairs were thrown at the stage.
Chairs were thrown at the stage. She just said it. There's no where's the video? And by the way, again, Wolf doesn't say what. Do you have a picture of that? Is there a video of that? Well, we're going to have to say that's an unsubstantiated report. And so if you're going to say that on my news show, I have to say that's unsubstantiated unless you have evidence. Let's see if he says so.
It is never okay for violence and intimidation.
So here, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, after just completely lying without any evidence, just lying. That's all that is. That's just lying. Right? Because this isn't the day after. You know that there isn't videotape of that, and you said there is. And there isn't. Because people have been asking for it all over social media. Everybody's been tweeting out, people like Cenk Uygur, people like Tom Hartman. Does anybody have any video of violence? People asking if anybody has even a picture. Nothing. Nothing. The most powerful political machine in the country can't come up with a picture. Not even a picture. And yet she's still allowed to say it. And now she goes over the edge. She can't help herself. She can't help herself. She wants to make sure that the Sanders supporters will never vote for Hillary because watch what she's going to say.
The response to that frustration. That's what happens with the Trump campaign. We can never resort to the tactics that they engage in.
She just compared the Bernie Sanders supporters to Trump supporters. She just did that on national television. She just did that. And let me get this straight. The senator who is a liberal's wet dream of a senator, Bernie Sanders, a liberal's wet dream of a senator. Somehow the people who support him are like Trump. And you wonder why Bernie Sanders says we need a revolution? Because this is the person running the Democratic National Committee. And you wonder why people say Bernie or bust. Do you really think those people are going to support her now? Do you really think those people are going to support this organization? I'm not. I'm not supporting her. I'm not supporting that. We need to overturn this apple cart. This is gross. They don't care. Instead of saying you're going to smear the most progressive liberal guy who's been on the right side of every issue in the history of issues. You're going to smear that guy for power in aid of the establishment. And not only that, you're going to smear his supporters, the most liberal progressive people. You know what? These people are so violent. They want health care for everybody. They're so violent. They want less war. They're so violent. They want free education. They're so violent, they want money out of politics so it can be returned back to the people and not the donors. That's how crazy these people are. Radical. This could be this is the dumbest thing she's ever done. Right there. It's almost guaranteeing Sanders people, if they were on the fence about voting for her, definitely aren't. So let's go. Let's see what else happened. I don't even know what this is about. Let's see what happens here.
Congresswoman, how are you going to make sure, given the anger out there, given the passion out there, that we can prevent this kind of chaos from developing at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia?
We can't because I keep pouring gas on the fire. I'm bad. I'm a bad leader. I'm corrupt. I'm transparently corrupt, just like the person I'm shilling for, Hillary Clinton. We're bad politicians. We make people hate us. We make people skin crawl. People who are interested in democracy hate people like me because I'm not interested in democracy. I'm interested in the establishment. I'm interested in my own self-interest and big money donors. I'm interested in keeping the system corrupt and full of money. I'm interested in smearing the most liberal progressive senator and the only guy who's been the only viable presidential candidate who's unbought in my lifetime. Let's smear that guy in order so we can put the second most hated politician in the world in power. Let's smear the guy who's the cleanest, doesn't take money, is right on every issue, been that way his whole life. And you wonder why more people aren't like Bernie Sanders? This is why. Because this is what they do to them. This is what they do to people like Bernie Sanders. They call him a sexist. Oh, they're socialist. They call him fairy dust, pie in the sky. Now they're calling him violent. He's just like Trump. They're just like Trump supporters.
How stupid is this woman? She just shit on 30 to 50% of her own party. And she just shit on a lot of people who, by the way, would vote for him if he was up against Trump directly. So what is wrong with this woman?
What you're saying is she's shitting on the independents.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, of course.
And why does she hate chairs so much?
Yeah, what is her problem with chairs?
Leave the chairs alone, for God's sake.